The second principle I want to leave you with today, the first was the national decision-making model. The second is the hierarchy of risk control. Not the best name, so we've got a nickname for this in the industry, and it's known as Eric Prevents Death. Has anybody come across this before? This is great. So I use this to talk about reducing interventions, because the nature of my business is people ring me up and they say, we need you to train us in this. We need you to teach us a way to get from this position to that position. So one of the things I talked about on that last slide was access, getting in and getting out of places. The amount of organisations that ask me to teach them how to restrain someone and take that person up or down a flight of stairs is ridiculous. Now, I don't know about you, but sometimes when I'm at home, I often fall up the stairs. Does anyone else do that? So that's where I'm at home, where I'm happy, the heating's on, my heart rate's like that, and I can't even do it safely. Why would I try and risk assess me getting somebody down or up a flight of stairs? First question would be, if the building was built with the intention of it being an establishment, why have you not got lifts and why have you not got ramps? Because we've got things like disability discrimination. And the second thing is, can you not calm somebody down at the top or the bottom of the flight of stairs and then consider moving them? If your seclusion room is on floor 3, something's probably going wrong within your planning. So just for me to map this is great because it's an international premise. So when the first thing that happens, even if you go over the border to Scotland, people say, oh, sorry, criminal law, it doesn't apply to us. So you have to back away from the legislation of the UK and look at other ways to have these discussions. So this is great. First question is, do we need to restrain people? No? Then don't. Job done. Hang on, we've got a duty of care. We sometimes need to. Fine. What can you do to reduce these interventions happening in the first place? What are your antecedents? What are the triggers? What's the rapport like? Are staff empathetic towards the needs of the service user? We also reduce the risk of restraints by having adequate staffing levels. Again, companies, we need to learn some single-person restraints. Why? Well, that's all the staff we've got. It's called risk versus cost. You make sure you've got the correct staffing levels so you can manage accordingly. Control I've put in red. So control is the physical stuff. It's the holding, the restraining, the breakaway techniques that some of you have probably been involved with. Before you even consider doing a control measure, ask yourself this. Might it be better we back away and give this person a bit of space to calm down in, or might we be better containing the person rather than restraining them? Now, if I just flick forward a slide, one of the key points from NICE guidelines, it talks about avoiding seclusion, especially when someone enters an A&E unit and they're presented as having a mental health problem. So if we're not allowed to use seclusion, which is isolate, then what are we left with? We're left with the physical restraint, the holding of people. Well, holding's dangerous, and if the risk assessment says that it's too dangerous, you should be considering PPE. What's PPE? Personal protective equipment, or work equipment for that nature, which I'll talk about in a short while. D, what does discipline mean? Discipline means, and to quote Einstein, don't keep doing the same thing and expecting different results. If you've got somebody in seclusion, don't just leave them there and hope that they get better, because that doesn't happen. You've got to try and reintegrate them. You've got to try and look at getting them interacting with other people, playing cards, playing Xbox, getting them out of that. If it's not safe to do that, then we look at, right, what are the reduction measures? How's the medication going here? Or if you are at a loss as to how you're going to deal with this patient, it's the top one, which says the patient's in the wrong setting, maybe we should look at transferring them. Now, people say to me, oh, it's easy for you to say that, but people don't listen. Every organisation has got a person in charge of health and safety. Sometimes they even dress like those people there because they're so into health and safety. Day one of any health and you know them, clipboards. Any person who does health and safety, this is what they learn on day one, hierarchy of risk control. So say, this is how we're managing the situation currently. Can your health and safety person comment on our risk assessment? Are we doing everything we can to comply with the hierarchy of risk control? Because it's their job to make sure that happens. Now, I'm not guaranteeing this, but I've seen people take this away and get extra funding, get extra staff in, get money for training. One school I work with even had a building built because they'd been told they had to deal with this pupil because the special schools were full. So if they were going to deal with it, how does it fit in there? They had to have something in place to manage it. So just moving forward, let's talk about restraint. Restraint is a manual handling activity. People forget this. So if I'm going to pick up this imaginary box here, there's ACOP, approved code of practice, that tells me how to do this. But I don't need to talk to you about that because you all know what it is because it's what your mums and dads used to tell you. How do I pick this box up? Bend your knees, keep your back straight, keep the load close to your body, don't twist your trunk, feet face the same way as your shoulders. If you're male, don't attempt to lift more than 25 kilos, and if you're female, don't attempt to lift more than 18 kilos. The people you deal with, who represent themselves as patients, do they weigh more than 3.5 stone? So it's a manual handling activity. Let's break this down even further. So another job of mine is I work as an expert witness, or a consultant, should we say, and I'm employed by insurance companies who are paid, solicitors who are employed by insurance companies to write reports on things like injuries. And where people have been injured, restraining people, this is the main kind of stuff I cover. So the load they were asked to support. Now again, we're personifying this person as an object, but this is what health and safety law tells us. A load can be a person, a patient, or an animal. Is it heavy, bulky, or unwieldy? Difficult to grasp, or if it doesn't want to be held, it absolutely will be. The individual capability of the people restraining. The more experience you get, the older you get, and the more injuries you carry. So we've got things like false knees, we've got pacemakers, we've got dislocated shoulders on the job, speaking from personal experience. And you're then trying to hold someone who's much bigger and much stronger than you. The task, excessive pushing or pulling, long distances, twisting, and what about the environment? I mean, all of that, you just wouldn't do that risk assessment and try it. You'd say, hang on, we need to go back to the drawing board. So if control measures aren't sufficient, what's the next step? Well, it's talking about equipment, isn't it? When we're talking about mechanical equipment, so again, we immediately look at handcuffs and we think, oh, that's disgusting, we shouldn't be using handcuffs. Who shops at Waitrose, Sainsbury's or Tesco's? Who shops at Aldi or Netto? Oh, cut the room in half. Look at that. So, when my wife's at home, we shop at Aldi and Netto because you get all your week shopping for about £20. But if I'm on my own, we have Booths. It's like Waitrose in Lytham where I live. So I'll go to Booths, and it's nice because I injured my shoulder over the summer. People help me pack my bags. I get these little green tokens to give to charity. I have a nice chat. It always smells of fresh bread, and nobody ever pings my car wherever I park, which is a hang-up from Aldi. If you go to Aldi, it's a completely different checkout experience, isn't it? So it's more like this, sprint packing, and they chuck it at you. Do you know why that is? It's because of work-related upper limb disorders and musculoskeletal disorders. American and European supermarkets, we're still paying out. We're still part of the compensation culture. But Scandinavian and German supermarkets have said, if you're twisting, if you're turning, and if you're lifting things, you're at risk of this. So you take regular breaks, you sit still, and you ask the customer if they've had a nice day, but you don't ever help them pack. You look at your shopping experience differently after today. So if supermarkets are taking those safeguards to stop injuries, why am I still seeing staff hanging on for dear life to people that are struggling, or told they're not allowed to restrain? Well, then when the person comes to attack them, what did he do? Just break away repeatedly? So on equipment, so again, when we talk about work equipment, this includes handcuffs, it includes soft restraints, it includes stretchers, it includes devices that can hold people. So the first test is, don't just say, oh, well, we've got this seatbelt on this wheelchair will do. No, the seatbelt on a wheelchair, what's it there for? Stopping people falling out. It's not to fix them in. If it was there to fix them in, it'd need more padding, it'd need to be medically risk assessed for that activity. It should be safe for use, maintained in a safe condition, and it should be inspected. Why might we have to inspect certain restraints? Certain restraint equipment we use to lift people. What regulations would we be looking at there? Correct, 10 points for you. Lifting of loads regulations, whichever country you're in. They should be used by people who've been trained to use it. So again, I'm a big believer, don't just leave this, oh, we bought this kit, let's put it on the ward. No, you've got to let people only have access to it who need to use it, who've been trained in its use. Should come with safety measures or a training package as well to make sure you can use it.